Hi, and welcome back to the Kokiri Kingdom. One thing I love about The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess is how each of the game's main dungeon items gets constant use throughout the game. The Gal Boomerang, for example, turns from a puzzle solver into your main method of catching bugs for Agatha, and the bow is always an effective weapon for bosses or enemies alike. Do I even need to explain how the claw shot gets constant use? It has an entire second late game dungeon. Unfortunately, the items of Twilight Princess being so good makes one odd little duck among them stand out even more. You know exactly which ugly duckling I'm talking about, the spinner that Link obtains in the Arbiter's Grounds dungeon. We all know how Zelda dungeons work. You do a few normal puzzle rooms, fight some enemies here and there, maybe collect the map and compass along the way, then about halfway through the dungeon you usually fight some sort of mid-boss and get a new item around which the second half of the dungeon then revolves. Arbiter's Grounds does not work that way. So, because this dungeon happens immediately after getting the Master Sword and the ability to transform between Link's human and wolf forms at will for the first time in the game, the entire dungeon focuses around solving puzzles by switching between your two forms and taking advantage of their varying strengths and weaknesses. You may think that I'm exaggerating a bit when I say that the spinner gets shafted for the entire dungeon, but I promise I'm not. When you finally get the item, there's but a single room left in the entire, honestly pretty long dungeon. Now granted, I will give you that it's a pretty large room, and it's focused entirely around the spinner. And it's also kind of one of the most important rooms of the dungeon when you consider that it has a piece of heart in it. But it's still an incredibly small portion of the dungeon that's actually taking advantage of the item that you get in the dungeon. Seemingly because they knew that players would still be getting used to this item, the dungeon's boss, Stalord, is incredibly simple and one of the quickest bosses in the game. You would think that a giant skeleton dragon with a cursed sword in his head would be a pretty difficult foe for the hero of Twilight to face, but I honestly have a feeling that once we get to the editing phase of this video you're watching, the footage will show the boss's second phase being defeated within the amount of time it takes for me to finish this sentence. Back to the dirt with that old fossil. Now, in the spirit of fairness to the spinner, it does seem like being obtained right at the end of the dungeon is a change that was made midway through development, as if, for some reason, you decide to backtrack to the earlier rooms in Arbiter's Grounds on your journey through the dungeon, you'll actually see that the spinner is capable of some pretty unique interactions with various obstacles, such as being able to destroy the spikes in this room. I bet Indiana Jones wishes he had a spinner in Temple of Doom. I mean, I guess it can't be that useless, right? Okay, so, yeah, the spinner may not get a lot of use inside Arbiter's Grounds, but that doesn't mean the item's worthless, right? As we established at the beginning, every item in Twilight Princess gets a ton of use after their dungeons. For some more examples, the iron boots let you go underwater anywhere in the entire map, which is great, and the Dominion Rod has an entire exploration arc surrounding it. So, what's the spinner get? There is a single heart piece in Hyrule Field which requires the spinner. Otherwise, though, no minigames, no hidden puzzles, no nothing. The most use that the spinner gets at this point is as a glorified weighted switch in 2 rooms in the City of the Sky, which just so happens to be the dungeon devoted to showing you how cool the claw shot really is by bringing it back. A little ironic. If this humiliation tour for the spinner wasn't enough, to add insult to injury, you can't even use the spinner as a weapon to fight enemies, like you can with most other items in Twilight Princess. And why might that be? Because the truth is, Link moves as slow as a pathetic little snail whenever you try to use it outside the rails that it normally attaches to. Just no movement. Not even faster than walking. This is probably the most ridiculous aspect of the spinner. It's for all intents and purposes the Zelda version of a Beyblade, so why is it so slow? The one thing those toys are known for is moving fast. Link should be doing Ninjago Spinjutsu type moves on this thing, so what's going on with it? For these reasons, the spinner was pretty much a laughingstock among the Zelda community for years upon years, and to this day, it has yet to appear in or be adapted by a single other mainline game. However, that doesn't mean that we haven't seen it since 2006, as a certain spin-off decided to resurrect this long-made fun-of item with their own unique spin on the spinner. Enter Koei Tecmo and Nintendo's 2014 Zelda Musou game Hyrule Warriors, which included a full spinner moveset for Link. So, the burning question on everybody's lips, how did Hyrule Warriors handle turning this completely worthless and justifiably made fun of item into a full-blown Musou moveset? Well... Link has 7 different movesets in Hyrule Warriors, and somehow the spinner of all items is one of the coolest! Any fan who was upset about this item being slow, pathetic, disinteresting, and underutilized in Twilight Princess will be fully serviced by this game. Being able to race across the battlefield and spin through enemies in multiple different ways is so satisfying, and something I couldn't have even imagined coming from the spinner based on its lackluster portrayal in Twilight Princess. Hyrule Warriors also fully embraces the spinner being a Beyblade in ways that Twilight Princess wouldn't have even been capable of. Link has multiple attacks which involve bouncing multiple spinners off of each other and into enemies as if they were thrown into the middle of a big Beyblade arena. It's really awesome. They even went so far as to include references to cool things that Twilight Princess could have done with the spinner, but simply didn't. For example, during the first dungeon in Twilight Princess, the player will have to knock some demon-possessed baboon named Ook off of some poles during a mini-boss fight by awkwardly smacking Link's face among the poles. Much later in the game, when fighting Zant, the player has to knock him off the same way, by awkwardly smacking your face into the poles, instead of, I don't know, using something that spins and bounces between things. Which, I mean, seems pretty useful in that case, but Hyrule Warriors agrees, because it poses the question, what if instead of doing that, Link had simply slammed the spinner into those poles? But that's not all. The final aspect of the spinner that Hyrule Warriors takes advantage of is the big pointy part that sticks into the ground. Admittedly, this part I can completely forgive Twilight Princess for ignoring, as the spinner's purpose in that game, as a puzzle item, is to ride across gaps. It's not really something Link lifts up or uses as a weapon in that way. Despite that, it's undeniably cool to see Hyrule Warriors Link just pick it up and slam it into enemies for attacks, or even use his big Musou skill to punch it forward into a crowd of enemies and annihilate them all with its pointy tip. Hyrule Warriors transforming the ugly duckling spinner from a complete joke of an item into the beautiful swan that is one of the coolest movesets in the entire game is just another example of how this game is a complete love letter to every game in the Zelda franchise, even parts of the series that are overlooked or outright disliked. So, what do you think? Did this video send you for a spin? How do you feel about the spinner as an item? We hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you so much again for watching. We hope to see you soon again in the Kokiri Kingdom. Bye for now!